I stared at the email on my phone. Subject line: change of plans. Family meeting required. It was from my son-in-law, Derek, not my daughter. That should have been the first red flag. Arthur, we need to discuss the cabin situation. Margaret and I have decided it makes more sense for us to take over full ownership. You're getting older, and the maintenance is too much for you anyway. We'll buy you out at a fair price. Meeting this Saturday at 2 p.m. I read it 3 times. The cabin. The one I built with my own hands 40 years ago. The one where I taught my daughter to fish. Where my wife and I spent every summer until she passed. The cabin Derek and Margaret had been using every other weekend for the past 5 years because I'd put their names on the deed for estate planning purposes. Fair price. That's what he called it. I set the phone down on my kitchen table, the same table where Margaret used to do her homework, where she cried when her mother died, where she promised me she'd always take care of the cabin, keep it in the family. That was Thursday morning. By Thursday evening, the cabin was no longer in the family. Let me back up. 5 years ago, my financial advisor suggested I start transferring assets to avoid estate taxes. Made sense. Margaret was my only child. Why not put her name on the cabin deed? Derek seemed like a good enough guy back then. Worked in real estate development, always talking about property values and investment opportunities. I should have seen it coming when Derek started bringing clients to the cabin. Just showing them the area, he'd say. Then he started talking about how much the property had appreciated. How waterfront land in our county was severely undervalued. How developers were circling. But I never thought they'd actually try to force me out. I called my daughter. She didn't answer. I called again. Voicemail. I texted, Margaret, did you read Derek's email? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Dad, we can talk about it Saturday. Derek's right that it's a lot for you. We're just trying to help. Trying to help. That phrase. The same one Derek used when he suggested I add their names to the deed. I sat there for 20 minutes. Then I picked up my phone and called Tom Brewster. Tom had been my attorney for 30 years, handled my wife's estate, knew every detail of my finances. Tom, I need to know something. That cabin deed. Can they force me out? Papers rustled on his end. Let me pull the file. Hold on. I waited. Outside my window, I could see the oak tree I'd planted when Margaret was born. 43 years old now. Arthur, you're listed as joint tenant with right of survivorship. They can't force you out. But, he paused. They could make your life difficult. Push for partition sale. It'd be messy. What if I want to transfer it out? Put it in a trust or something? You'd need all parties to sign off. Or, well, you could sell your interest to a third party. But that's nuclear. You'd essentially be selling part of your own cabin to a stranger. I thanked him and hung up. Then I called my old fishing buddy, Robert Chen. Robert had made a fortune in tech, retired at 50, and now spent his time buying and selling recreational property. He'd been asking me about the cabin for years. Robert, remember how you said if I ever wanted to sell, you'd be interested? Arthur? Of course. But I thought that place was your heart and soul. It was. But things change. Can you come look at it tomorrow morning? Tomorrow? That's fast. I know what I'm doing. Robert met me at the cabin at 8 on Friday morning. The mist was still rising off the lake. The dock I'd rebuilt 6 times. The stone fireplace I'd laid myself. The bedroom where my wife took her last breath, looking out at the water. Robert walked the property with the professionalism of someone who'd seen 1,000 pieces of land, but I saw him pause at the view. Touch the hand-hewn beams. Arthur, this is special. You know that. I do. The market value is probably $450, maybe $500. But for me personally, because of what this place represents, I'd go $600. Cash. Close in 2 weeks. I thought about Margaret's college fund, the money I'd given her for the wedding, the down payment I'd helped with on their first house, the car I'd bought her when hers died. I'll take $550, but I need to close by Monday. Robert's eyes widened. Monday? Arthur, I know what I'm asking. You've got the cash. I've got a clear title to my portion. Can you do it or not? He studied my face. We'd known each other 40 years. He knew I didn't play games. I can do it, but you have to tell me what's going on. Family meeting tomorrow. They want to buy me out at a fair price. I'd rather sell to someone who'll respect what this place means. Robert nodded slowly. I'll call my attorney. We'll make it happen. By Friday afternoon, the paperwork was drafted. Robert's lawyer was good, maybe the best in the county. By Friday evening, we'd signed everything pending, the title search and final wire transfer. Saturday morning, I got another email from Derek. Looking forward to our conversation today. I've had the property appraised. We're prepared to offer $200,000 for your share. $200,000. For half of a property worth $1 million? They were counting on me being old and tired and ready to just take whatever they offered. I replied, meeting canceled. Situation resolved. My phone rang immediately. Margaret, Dad, what do you mean canceled? Derek took time off work for this. I sold my share of the cabin. Silence. Then, you what? I sold my interest in the property. To Robert Chen. He's been wanting waterfront land. Deal closes Monday. You can't do that. Actually, I can. Tom Brewster confirmed it. As a joint tenant, I can sell my share to whomever I want. But Derek had plans. He was going to develop it, put in luxury rentals. We were going to. There it was. The truth. Finally. You were going to develop it. We were going to cut you in, Dad. Make you a partner. By forcing me out first? By offering me a fraction of what it's worth? We weren't. Derek's offer was fair market value for Margaret. Derek's offer was $200,000 for $500,000 property. Don't insult my intelligence. I could hear Derek in the background, his voice rising. Margaret covered the phone, but I heard fragments. Tell him. Can't. We'll sue. She came back on. Derek says we can fight this. You can't just sell to some random person. Robert's not random. He's been my friend longer than you've been alive. And yes, I can sell. Already did. This isn't over, Dad. She hung up. The wire transfer hit Monday at 10 a.m. $600,000. Robert had added 50 as a gift, he said, for all the fishing trips and memories. At noon, Derek called. His voice was controlled, tight. Arthur, let's be adults about this. We can still work something out. I'll match whatever Chen offered. Deal's closed, Derek. Property transferred this morning. You spiteful old. He caught himself. You just destroyed your daughter's financial future. Funny. I thought I built it. Paid for her education, her wedding, her first house. Seems to me I've done plenty for Margaret's financial future. This was her inheritance. No, Derek. This was my property, my life's work, and I chose to sell it to someone who won't turn it into a strip mall. It's not a strip mall, it's luxury, he stopped. Robert Chen doesn't even live in this state. What's he going to do with it? That's between me and Robert. But I can tell you he's not developing it. He's going to fish there. Maybe bring his grandkids. Let it be what it was meant to be. Derek's voice went cold. Margaret's never going to forgive you for this. Maybe not. But at least she'll understand what happens when you try to con your own father. He hung up. For 3 weeks, I heard nothing. No calls, no emails, no drop-bys with my grandson, little Danny. That hurt more than I expected. Then on a Thursday evening, there was a knock at my door. Margaret stood there, alone. Her eyes were red. Can I come in? I stepped aside. She walked to the kitchen table, the same spot where she'd sat 1,000 times before. Derek and I are separated. I didn't say anything. Just put the kettle on for tea, the way her mother used to. After you sold the cabin, he started. I saw a side of him I'd been ignoring. The way he talked about you, about the property, about what we were owed. She wiped her eyes. He'd been planning it for months, Dad. Had architects, investors lined up. He was going to borrow against our house to fund the development. He never told me any of it. I poured the tea, set it in front of her. When the deal fell through, those investors wanted their commitment fees back. Money Derek had already spent. We had to take a second mortgage just to cover it. She laughed, bitter. Turns out Derek had a lot of plans that didn't include consulting me. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Don't be. She wrapped her hands around the mug. I'm the one who should apologize. I let him convince me that you were just a burden, that the cabin was wasted on you, that we deserved it more because we were younger, we could maximize its potential. Did you believe that? She was quiet for a long moment. I wanted to, It was easier than admitting I'd married someone who saw dollar signs when he looked at my family. We sat there as the tea cooled. Robert called me, she said finally. He asked if I wanted to visit the cabin sometime. Bring Danny fishing? What did you tell him? I said I'd have to ask you first, if you'd even want me there after what I did. I reached across the table, took her hand, the same hand I'd held when she learned to walk, when her mother died, when she got married. Margaret, I didn't sell the cabin to punish you. I sold it to protect it, and to teach you something your mother and I never quite got across. What's that? That family isn't about what you inherit, it's about what you honor. She cried then, really cried, and I let her. A month later, Robert invited us both up to the cabin. Derek was gone by then, moved in with one of his investor's daughters, according to Margaret. The divorce was proceeding quietly. Danny ran down to the dock, the same dock where Margaret had learned to fish. Robert had kept everything exactly as it was, even my old chair on the porch. I didn't buy this place to change it, Robert said, handing me a beer. I bought it to preserve it, for people who understand what it means. Margaret was teaching Danny to bait a hook, the same way I'd taught her, the same way my father had taught me. You're welcome here anytime, Robert continued. Both of you. This place should have family in it. I watched my daughter laugh as Danny caught his first sunfish. Tiny thing, barely big enough to see. But he held it like it was a marlin, and Margaret took a picture. And for a moment, everything was exactly as it should have been. That email from Derek had said I was getting too old for the maintenance, too old to appreciate what I had, too old to make my own decisions. But standing there, watching 3 generations of fishermen on the same dock, I'd never felt sharper. Sometimes people confuse age with weakness. They think because you've been around, you don't notice their games, that you'll just accept whatever they offer and be grateful for it. But age isn't weakness. It's pattern recognition. It's having seen enough hands to know when someone's bluffing. It's knowing that sometimes the best move isn't to fight back, it's to step aside and let people face the consequences they've created. Derek learned that the hard way. Spent 6 months planning a development that disappeared in 72 hours because he underestimated an old man who built things with his hands. Margaret learned something too. She learned that loyalty isn't about blood, it's about integrity. That you can inherit property, but you can't inherit character. That has to be built piece by piece, like a cabin on a lake. As for me, I learned that sometimes the hardest thing to do is the right thing. That walking away from something you love to protect it takes more strength than holding on. That the measure of a man isn't what he owns, but what he's willing to sacrifice to preserve what matters. The cabin still stands. Robert sends me pictures sometimes. The sunrise over the water, the new coat of stain he put on the dock, the eagle's nest in the old pine tree. And every other weekend, Margaret and Danny drive up. They fish, they swim, they sit on the porch and watch the sunset. Sometimes I join them. Sometimes I stay home and just imagine them there, making new memories in a place that almost became a parking lot for luxury condos. Derek sends an email occasionally, apologizing, asking if we can move past this, suggesting that family should forgive. I never respond, because I did forgive. I forgave the moment I signed those papers with Robert. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means choosing not to let it poison you. But trust? Trust is like that cabin. You build it slowly, carefully, over decades. And once someone tries to tear it down for profit, all the apologies in the world won't rebuild it. Margaret understands that now. Danny will too, someday, when he's old enough to hear the whole story. And maybe that's the real inheritance I left them. Not property, not money, but the knowledge that some things can't be bought, sold, or developed. Some things you protect, even when it costs you everything, especially when it costs you everything, because that's when you find out what you're really made of. Share your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't to hold on. It's to know when to let go and to whom. Sometimes it's not about winning the fight. It's about making sure the right things survive.